Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the second installment of our book backpack. And I would like to welcome every single person back today. If you're joining us again today after the first one, thank you so very much and thank you for your time. And I hope you found the cutting and all the interfacing easy and straightforward enough. If you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. And so today we're going to go along and start putting all the pieces together. And this is where I believe the fun really starts. So we've got all our pieces together, all cut out, all interfaced, and all labeled. So today we're going to start off with the top handle tabs, which is the piece G. It's a very tiny one. So if you look through your pack and find piece G, then we're going to get along and start putting it all together. Start off, we're going to make the top handle tabs, and these are where the handles go into, the top handles, the two short ones at the top. So what we need to do is the short ends, you take the short ends and you fold them inwards, as in towards the wrong side, 1/4 of an inch on either side. If you want, please feel free to draw the line on, because sometimes it's not easy to judge it. So it's going to look something like that from the right side, and from the wrong side, they're going to be facing inwards. So this is what you want to achieve on all 4 of them. Let's carry on and finish those. I have all 4 of them done. And I've clipped them down, just held them down with clips. I really don't need to. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn them right sides together like that. So right sides together, so they give you that lovely little shape. And then we're going to stitch down both ends with a scant 1/4 inch seam. So it's not a full 1/4 inch, but just a bit shy of a 1/4 inch. So we're going to do that for all 4 of them. And then we go to the sewing machine and we start playing. Sewing, I mean. So remember, it's a scant 1/4 inch seam that you need. So if you've got a 1/4 inch foot, that's great. And you just use a bit less than the 1/4 inch. And if not, you should be able to work it out on your machine. Or if you need help, just let us know. So I'm just going to sew scant 1/4 inch. And one thing I normally do is I chain piece all my pieces. So once one goes through, I just pass all the others through it, and that saves me a lot of hassle. And if you want to backstitch, feel free to as well. Four are now completed. As you can see, I've just done them in a nice long row because it works better. Trim off each one individually. And then you're going to trim the bottom corners and turn them right side out. And once we've done that, we're going to press and place to one side for now. So that's piece G done. And then we can go on to the next one. So I'm just trimming off all the excess bits, anything that might annoy me later. And then remember, trim off the bottom edges so that it's nice when it's turned over. It's just so tiny, gosh. But you can still manage to sort of like, you know, get it through, and voila. You have one tiny little zipper tab done. So we're going to do all 4 of them, and then we're going to take them to the ironing board. You can see we've got 4 handle tabs nicely done. So I'm going to sort of either coordinate them or decide what I want to do, how I want to put them together, because they're slightly different. Yep, they're all different. So I will decide that later. What we're going to work on is the piece K, which is the top handle itself. And how we're going to do that is you take your 2 pieces of fabric, fold them in half. The pattern did suggest that if you want your handles to be nice and crisp, you can use a spray stitch on them, but I'm not a fan of spray stitch, so skipping that step. But if you would like to do that, please go ahead and do it. Spray some spray stitch on, iron it, and then leave it to dry before you continue with the next step. But either way you decide to do it is great. Fold your fabric in half lengthwise, open it up, and then fold the edges to the center. And I just clip as I go, or I just eyeball as I go, and then fold in half again. Depends on how you want to do it. Like I say, I just go with whatever version I find easiest to do. So this is what we need to do for both of them. Fold in half, open them up, and then fold the edges into the center to meet at the center. And when you've done that, then fold it over at the center again, and it's going to give you that, which would be the size of the handle that we want. So we're going to do that with the second one as well. So fold in half, open up, fold both edges to the center, and once you've done that, fold again at the center. And we're going to be doing the long handle like that as well. So it's a process we're going to use more than once in this bag making sew along. Now at this stage, if you want, you can press it in place, but because I'm sure it's going to hold, now we need to do is top stitch both sides, starting with the open end with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all on both sides of the handle. So we're going to go and do that now. So I normally use 4 on my machine, and 1/8 of a seam, yeah, allowance. And I just feed the second one right through as soon as I finish the first one without cutting it up or anything. I change this because it does make it go a lot faster. So when one side of it has been done, we just turn it to the other side and do the same thing. And I still haven't cut off the thread or anything, so I'm just going to feed the other side into it and stitch down. I've separated the two handles, and now we're going to go on to the next step, which is taking the tabs we created earlier, those tiny little tabs. We're going to fit them to the ends of our handles. So if you like, you can hold it together and push it in as far as it would go. And this was what I meant about not knowing exactly what I wanted to do, but I think I would have one on either side. Push it as far in as it would go all the way down. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch across the opening there to stitch it in place. So like I said, you can hold it with a pin or with a clip. Last but not least, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the machine and we're just going to sew right across to hold it in place and to fasten it in place. And make sure to change your machine back to its original setting, or if you want, you can still leave it at the number you used for your top stitching, because it's still going to be, it looks more like a top stitching than a proper sewing anyway. So that's up to you what you would like to do. And then we sew. And with these as well, I just chain piece them and just carry on sewing until all 4 of them are done. there we have for the two handles done with the handle tabs all sewn on. So I'm just going to separate them and clip off any excess thread. Next piece we'll be working on is the piece E, and that is the back strap support, and that's the one we've interfaced with just the interfacing more to one side than the other one. So we're going to take that, fold them right sides together, and then we're going to sew down the long end. So we're going to take that to the machine and sew. Allowance throughout this pattern is 3/8 of an inch, but I remember somebody always says whatever you use, whatever seam allowance you want. But just to be clear, the seam allowance on this is 3/8 of an inch, which is roughly about 1 centimeter. And if I was doing this and it wasn't a sew along and I was just sewing this on my own by myself, most likely I would have used 1/4 of an inch, but that's just me. So 3/8 of an inch down the long end. And then we need to turn it right side. We need to turn it right side out, and you can see it's been nicely turned and pressed. Now we're going to baste the short ends, and just change your machine stitch length to whatever, well, a higher length, and just baste in place. Then the next, trim off any extra thread that's hanging, or any excess thread that's hanging from any of the pieces you sew, so it gives you a nice and clean finish when you're done. And once that is done, we place that to one side and we go for the next piece, which would be the back straps. Which are the back straps, and we're going to fold them as we folded the G, which was wrong sides together to start with. Open it up. Oh gosh, it's fraying. Okay. Open it up, fold to the center, and then fold again. So fold in half, wrong sides together, open it up, fold the edges into the center, and then fold at the center again to form another nice looking strap. So that's what we're going to have. And this is where we do something slightly different. We want to make sure that the ends are nicely all enclosed. So we fold the top back on itself like that. The edges, the short edges, we fold them back on themselves like that. And we're going to sew down that edge So I'll just pin that in place and I'll show you on the other side again. So at the moment you should have your strap looking like this at the other end. Open it up. So the two center pieces should still be meeting at the center. Then you fold it back on itself. So it looks more like a W sort of shape or an M, depending on what angle you're looking at it from. And you would have that. So we're going to prepare the second one as well. Fold at the center. Then fold into the center. And if you want to, when you're doing each fold, if you want to, please feel free to press into place, because the instructions does say press into place after each fold. But I don't press. Because at the end of the day, it still falls into place, in my opinion. But please do press if you would want to press. There is no law against it. I just speed through every single thing. So we have the strap done, and then we go back to the edges and we fold them back on themselves like that. So we're going to be sewing that in place. If I had ironed it now, you know, I wouldn't have this problem of them moving and jigging all over the place. But like I said, please press if you want to press. And there. So we have both of them ready to go to the sewing machine. Sewing this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we take it to the machine, and remember to turn your machine back to its original sewing stitch length, because if not, you're going to be sewing either with the top stitch, with the top stitch number, or something that you really don't want. So make sure you put it back down to whatever it was meant to be. So we sew down the short ends, 1/4 inch seam allowance. I always tend to backstitch at the beginning and at the end, because they do have a tendency to unravel if not done properly. So please do backstitch as well. And once that's done, I separate them. They are no longer twins. They are now single entities. And then we snip. We've got to trim the seam allowance so that when we turn them round, they're going to look really nice and neat and well laid as well. So we do that for the first one. We do that for the second one. We're going to repeat this process for the piece J, the back strap connectors as well. So just finish this off, and then we're going to start with that. So once you've done that and you've trimmed off the seam allowance, you need to push that back in, and you can see that you get a nice clean finish at the end of it, which is what we're trying to achieve. And if you like, you can poke it through if you've got one of those pokey wokey thingies. I've got different types. And Just use that to poke that through and make sure that you have a nice clean edge. And voila. So that one's been poked through, and then we poke the other one through as well. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to top stitch with a quarter of an inch seam allowance down the open end so that we close it off, and actually down all four corners of it. And once we've done that, we'll need to do the J one. So before we do that, because that's the final bit, we'll just quickly do the J and get it to the same stage as this, and then all we do is just sew everything all up at the same time. See, we're here with piece J, we folded it in half, opened it up, the two side edges meet in the middle, and then fold it one more time, and then we're going to turn the edges back on themselves, and we're going to go sew those with a quarter of an inch seam allowance. And once we've done that, we will trim off the excess on the seam allowance, and we should be at the same stage as we are with the back connect, the back straps. Yeah. Now this is where a live sew along trumps a pre-recorded one, because now I could be fielding questions and answering questions and helping out and stuff. So for next time, I'm going to really seriously consider either going live or doing a recorded sew along, as in the interaction does help as we go, and we're all doing the same thing at the same time, and it's not just me all done and dusted, and then I'm waiting for answers and things. We can answer the questions as we all go along. So that's been done, and I'm now decoupling them. So we trim off any excess thread, and then we trim the seam allowance. Okay, we've done that now, and then we turn it to the right side. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew around all four sides with the quarter of an inch seam allowance and top stitching. So we're using the top stitching stitch, which would be the largest stitch, to go all the way around it. Once that is done, that is done. So we go 4 corners And you can either, as usual, you can just either chain piece, or you can do it one at a time. The choice is yours. But as usual, lazy me, I shall be chain piecing. Of bobbin thread, but all sorted now and all sewn up. So we have our 4 pieces, the 2 backpack straps and the 2 J backstrap connectors. So we're going to be working with the backstrap connectors now, the shorter ones. So make sure you've trimmed off any excess thread coming out from your straps, and make sure it's nice and neat for when we attach them. And you would have a nice finished looking product. So we're going to be working with the backstrap connectors, the J, which was the last one we worked on. So we're going to need the very first part of our hardware today, which is going to be the what's it called now? The rectangular rings. Yes, those ones. And as you can see, they're not the ones that have a thing in between them. They're just rectangular. And if you remember, we talked about hardware when we're cutting and say you need to make the straps the size of your hardware, and that's why I've made these ones just the exact strap, the exact size of the hardware that I have. Is we take one of the J straps and slide the rectangular ring over it, into it like that, and then we fold it over roughly about an inch. So that should be roughly an inch, and if I measure that on my board, yes, that's roughly about an inch. So fold it over, and then we're going to sew right across to secure it. So we're going to go to the machine, and you do that with the second one. I've already done that, but you do that with the second one as well. So you're going to have one each with the rectangular ring hanging from them. So we'll take it to the machine, and we're going to sew, and please back stitch, and we're going to sew it down. I tend to use a hemostat a lot because they just come in handy, and I can always use them in places where my fingers won't get to. And be careful they don't go under the needle, because I've broken a few needles using it. So like I said, back stitch both at the beginning and the end, and then the second one we do the same thing and we secure it. They're called either hemostats or tweezers, but either one, yeah, I've got two different types. That's one, and then I've still got another type, so whichever name comes to me first. So all you do is stitch it all down, snip off any loose thread that's hanging, and we have those done. Not perfectly straight, but done. with the back straps that we made when we were making J as well. We made both of them at the same time, and this time we're going to knit the tri-glide triangles. So make sure that, well, tri-glide buckle or rectangle, and we're going to fit that the strap, the back strap, into the one end of it into the triangle. So it goes like that and like that, and pull it over. Make sure you have just about an inch as well, like we did for the connectors as well. So just fold that in, and we're going to stitch down. And we do the same thing for the other one. We thread it through. And pull it through about an inch. And then we stitch it down again. I normally just use a 1/4 inch foot to get this done, but if you don't have one, and you could use your zipper foot to do it, so you can get as close as possible and not break a needle. But it's up to you, and whichever one you find easiest to do, please go ahead and use it. I'm just making sure it's roughly about an inch, because it doesn't look, it looks bigger than an inch to me. Yeah, slightly bigger, but it's just a rough idea anyway. So we go to the machine and we stitch it down like we did for piece J. Attach the tri-glide buckle in place on both, and so what we're going to do is we're going to place the back strap, the backpack strap, the back strap. We're going to place it down with the folded in edge, that area where we folded in 1/2 inch, no, 1 inch. We're going to place it facing upwards, and then we're going to take the strap connectors and pass the other end of the back strap into the connector. So this is the right side of the connector. If your rectangular ring has a right side or wrong side, the right side should be facing up, but mine doesn't, so which is why I'm going through this long explanation. And so you're going to have it facing up this way. So this is the side you want facing up, not this side that you've sewn. So you pass the ring through that, yeah, facing that way. You pull it through, and then you take it to the tri-glide buckle, pass it through the tri-glide buckle at the top, and then pass it through the other end of the buckle in there, and then you pull it through. When you've done that, you should have them both facing in the right direction. So the sewn part of the strap would be wedged in between the strap itself there, as you can see, and the strap connector should be facing the proper way when you have, so both connectors everything should be looking nice and how it's meant to look on the outside when it's all done. So we'll try that again with the second one, and then we'll see what we need to do again. So we place it down with this side facing upwards. We take the strap connector with this side facing downwards, so it's opposite. The back strap itself faces the wrong side, which I would say is that bit, faces upwards. And the strap connector, the wrong side, which has that bit, faces downwards. Then the edge of the back strap that doesn't have anything on yet, you thread it through the back strap, so it looks like that. And then you pull it all the way through, take it down to the tri-glide and push it in through the tri-glide, and then down over the top and into the other end, and then you pull it through, and then we have 2 of them properly done. And if you're still not sure and you need more help, in the pattern there is a video link of a tutorial that can sort of show you exactly what to do. But that is basically what we need to do to get that sorted out, and then we need to stitch down. Those are the 2 buckles finished. Now we take our strap support E, the one we finished earlier and that we basted the edges, and we need to measure in from the sides 3 inches in and 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. So from the left hand side, let's start from the left hand side, 3 inches in and 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. So this is the bottom, and this is 3 inches in from the edge, and that is where we're going to place our back straps. That's where we're going to start to place our back straps, and then we do that on the other side as well. Same measurement, 3 inches in from the side and 1/4 of an inch down, and we're going to place our straps on there. So the strap needs to be placed on with the right side facing downwards on it. So this is the bottom and this is our strap. So the top, you can see this is the right side of the strap, so it goes down that way, and it's the side of the strap that has a tri-glide buckle that needs to go on the strap support. So we place that down like that, and we pin in place. If I can find a pin. So that's just to hold it in place. And then we do the same thing for the other one as well. Make sure it's facing downwards, and we place that on the mark we made earlier. And we pin it in place. So, and once that has been done, we now need to sort of sew that down with a box with a cross in the center. So it's sewing round. So it's sewing a square there and then making a cross in the center. So you sew a box, then you sew diagonally, you sew down one side again, and then you sew down the other diagonal. And then we do that for the other side as well. So let's go to the sewing machine and do that. And you can go as nice and slow as you like doing this. Doing it this way gives it extra support. So because it's a backpack and it's carrying books, it's going to have lots of pressure on it. So this, whenever you make a bag and you do the cross in the middle, It just gives whatever you're making extra support. So that's one square with a cross in the box, and then we'll do the other one and trim off all the excess thread. And now we do the diagonals. And that is done. So both of those are done now. So I'll trim off any excess thread or anything that's hanging around on it. And I'll be right back. Decided to use trims. This is where you're going to need to add the trims. So you need to baste the trims to the top there and there as well. So make sure you move the straps out of the way and you baste the trims on there and on there. I've opted not to go for trims, so we're just going to move on to the next bit. What we're going to do is we're going to knit the outer from the piece A, one of the outer pieces from piece A, because we're going to be adding the strap support with the straps on that we've already attached on. We're going to be adding that to the bag. So you take one of your main pieces, the outer bag body, piece A, one of them, place it right side up, measure down from the top, measure 2 inches down from the top, and that is where we're going to place the strap support. That's one, that's two. Now, when you place down your support, you want to place it down so the box with the X in the middle is facing upwards and your straps are facing away from you. So you place them on that line, on that 2-inch line. Yeah, you place them on the 2-inch line. And what we're going to do next is we're going to secure that in place. It's 2 inches down from the top, and we're going to top stitch across the top of the strap support, and we're going to stitch top stitch the bottom of the strap support as well, and we're going to straight stitch over the straps as we go along. So we're going to take it to the machine now, and we're going to do that. So make sure you're using a top stitch. Make sure you're using a big, large enough stitch, top stitch. I normally use, like I said, I normally use a 4. So it depends on what your preferred stitch is on your machine. And then we sew right across and over. Okay, that has gone through nicely. And then we do that for the bottom as well. Then the next thing we're going to do is, so I like to trim off as I go because then I remember where all the threads are that are floating. And floating threads is, we're going to bring back the straps. We're going to bring them down and we're going to attach them to the bottom of our the front panel, the front piece, and it's going to be 3 inches in from the sides and 3/4 inch from the bottom. So we need to measure 3/4 from the side and 3 inches in from the side. And we do that the same thing for the other side as well. Because it's on a curve, just be careful if you use a larger, I'm just using a 1 inch ruler, so it's going to look a bit funny what I'm doing. But if I use a larger ruler, you'll be able to get to, because it's on a curve, you can't actually see. But if I use a proper ruler and I do 3/4 from the bottom and 3 inches in, it does make more sense because then you can see that, yes, you're 3 inches somewhere there, and you come down 1/4. So your 3 by is going to be somewhere there. So we're going to attach this as well down there. And we're going to use the box method to attach it in place as well. There. And we do the same thing for the other side. 3 inches and 1/4 from the bottom. 3 inches in and 3/4 from the bottom, not a quarter. 3 inches in from the sides and 3/4 from the bottom, and then we use the box with the X in the middle to finish off that as well. Just sewing down the other side. And remember, all you're doing is sewing a box and then putting an X in the box. If you would like to put any, now, what do you call them? If you want to put any rivets on your bag, this is the point where you need to put the rivets. Once you've finished with the cross sewing, you want to attach the rivets both to the top in the center of the X and at the bottom in the center of the X. But that is up to you, and if you really want to add the extra bling to it. So you can add a rivet in there. You can add a rivet in there, and at the bottoms as well. So now I'm just going to trim off any excess or anything that's hanging from our finished product, well, almost finished product. And then we go on to the next bit. If you would like to take a break, you can have a quick break. Intend to have a quick tea break, and I shall be back presently. Place that outer piece to one side for the time being. So it's done, and we're going to place that to one side. The next piece we're going to work with is the outer piece, the main outer piece A, the other one, and the pocket piece L, one of the pocket piece L's. So we've got the main fabric, the other one, the main outer, that's the other one, and we have one of the pocket pieces L. And what we need to do is we need to place the pocket piece L on centrally on the main outer piece, about 1/2 inch from the bottom, and centralized on both sides as well. So we need to find the center of this, and we need to find the center of the main outer as well, which you just do by folding together and clipping, folding together and clipping as well. So we find the center of those, 1/2 inch from the bottom. You place the pocket piece right over it. Make sure it's nice and centralized, and then you pin it in place. Because I'm using Decovil, it is a bit hard to push the pins through, but it does go through. So this is just to hold it in place while we make the hidden pocket that goes on it. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to measure roughly about 6 inches from the bottom of the pocket piece, and we're going to draw a box, which is going to be the length of our zip teeth. So we need to get our 8-inch zip. If you're using an 8-inch zip, well, you know it's 8-inch already. And if it's anything smaller than 8 inches, then just make sure, verify what the length is, and then that's the length that you're going to draw on your lining piece. So we're going to first find where the pocket is going to start, and that's going to be 6 inches from the bottom of the pocket piece. So 6 inches from the bottom would be roughly about here. And from there, we're going to draw, and it has to be centrally. So remember, everything has to be centralized, and I've marked the center of my pocket piece as well. So if it's 8 inches, it's going to be 4 on that side, 4 on this side. So my ruler stays on the 4, and I draw a line all the way to the 8. So the 4 is directly on the center of the lining piece, and then you have 4 on one side, 4 inches on one side of it, and 4 inches on the other side of it, which would make exactly the size of my zipper. And then for the height, it needs to be 3/8 of an inch, I think. Yes, 3/8 of an inch. So 3/8 of an inch, 1, 2, 3. And I go to my piece, position it again, 1, 2, 3, 3/8 of an inch, and make sure I draw another 8 inches. Now what you want to do is you want to draw a line in the center of that box, but make sure your line does not go all the way to the end, as in leave about, let me see, roughly about 1/4 of an inch or another 3/8 of an inch from the edge. So 1, 2, 3, just put a little dot there, and 1, 2, 3, put a little dot there, and then draw a line right down the middle. Now, when you've drawn the line, that is what it's going to look like. Now we're going to add sort of triangles at the end. Well, lines to make a triangle, more like. So you can either draw them with a ruler or you can draw them with your hand. So it's going to look like that. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to sew all along the outer line, all around the 4 corners. 1, 2, 3, 4. And once we've done that, we'll come back and do the next bit. When I get to the edge, I try and go really slowly so I don't overshoot the 8 inches by anything. And if necessary, I just roll into the next bit to make sure that it's exactly what I want it to be. And then down the side, slowly as well. And we Now come down the other side as well. Now, once you've done that, trim off any, as usual, trim off any excess thread. And this is where it gets interesting. You're going to snip along that middle line and then across into the triangles. You can see that. And into the triangles, but make sure you do not cut into your stitches. So you're going to go as close as you can to the edge, but you do not cut into your stitches. So you're going to cut across that line and cross into the triangles, but do not cross over into any of your stitches because that defeats the whole purpose of what we're doing. So I always start with a hole with my seam ripper, and then I use my trusted friend, my tiny scissors, to snip all the way through. Now this one is a bit thicker than what I'm used to, but yep. So all we're trying to do is just cut along that line all the way to, it's so thick my little scissors is struggling. So I'll use that. Now, because I really want to be careful I don't snip into my my stitches, I've changed scissors again. But all I'm just going to do is little tiny snips till I get to where I really want to be. So tiny little snips till you get exactly what you want, and don't cut into your stitches in any way. So when you're done with that, you should have this tiny little triangle just at the end sticking out in between the stitch you've just made. Okay, and we do the same thing on the other side. And on the other side. And once you're done, you should have little triangles there and little triangles there. And what we're now going to do is we're going to push the lining through to the other side of the main pattern body. So we take out our pins. And we push the lining through the opening. You might want to press, steam press the stitches and all that before you begin to turn and all, because it does make it a lot easier, I wouldn't lie. But ironing would still always be well, up to you as an individual. So if you want to, please go ahead and press the stitches open before you turn, because like I said, it's going to make things a lot easier for you. And because I'm using Decovil, that's why that is a bit hard, but I will get it down. Yep. I clip it down while I go round. And we're going to take it to the iron, and we have to iron that piece. Well, we have to iron it all nice and flat, so it's all really looking okay. So we still have to go to the sewing machine to do that. But like I said, you can steam before you begin to turn, because it does make it loads easier. And I'm off to the sewing machine to make it a bit easier to manipulate. I've pressed the pocket piece into submission, as you can see there. I've really pressed it really well, so it's all gone nicely in. And the next thing is we're going to take our zipper, and we're going to, and the reason why I've just placed pins in it is because I removed the stoppers, they're metal ones, and I just keep pulling the zipper pull out. I don't know why, but so that's why I just put a pin in, but the pin is not going to stay there. So you just need to position that behind your fabric with the teeth within that hole, with the teeth facing upwards, and you can attach it with either fabric glue, or I normally use just Oro pin, or if you've got double-sided tape, that's another very good one that I know most people use, but I just sort of eyeball it all and pin it down. But please go ahead and use whatever means works best for you. And once we've done that, please remember, if you've got a zipper foot, now's the time to change your foot to a zipper foot. And we're going to sew that down. So I'm going to go change to a zipper foot. I've also pinned my zipper into submission, as you can see there. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine now. I've changed it to a zipper foot as well. And then I'm going to sew all along the four sides of my zipper, and hopefully that should work fine. And here we go. Moving nice and steady down the edge of the zipper hole that's been made, and stitching the zipper down at the same time. If for any reason you need to move your zipper, as in if you need to, the zipper foot cannot go past the zipper, make sure your needle is down into the fabric, lift up your presser, the presser foot, and move the zipper out of the way, and then put the presser foot down, and then continue to sew. My zipper would always, well, because I've got a tapered zipper foot, it's just goes through. It doesn't need to, I don't need to stop, or I don't need to do anything. So if you've got that one, great. If not, make sure your needle is in the fabric. Bring up the presser foot, move the zipper out of the way, bring down the presser foot, and continue to sew. So next thing I do is any hanging threads or anything, I take them off. And the next thing we're going to do is we need to see if the zipper has been nicely attached on there. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to flip our project to the back, the pocket top, bring it down to meet at the bottom. And once you've done that, we now need to sew. We now need to sew round. Let me confirm what we're actually sewing for now. No, catching the front. Good. Yeah. Yeah, we're sewing all around the three sides, which means that we're not turning anything through the pocket. So we're just going to close that up completely. And remember, every single thing we're sewing has a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I have to change my foot from the zipper foot. Okay, so I shall see you in about. Foot back in place, and we're now going to sew. And when you sew, make sure you do not catch your main fabric. You just want the pocket piece, so you need to move that to the side slightly. You need to move that to the side slightly, and then you need to sew the three edges, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. is sewn down, and you can open it and stick your hands right through it. I matched the zipper to the lining fabric and not to the outer fabric, and that's why it looks really, really funny, but it all works. So that's that bit done, and we're now going to construct the front slip pocket. The pocket we're going to do now is the slip pocket that's going to be in front, and that is piece B, not piece M. So we take our two front slip pockets, and we have the main pocket and we have the lining pocket. And if you do want to add a trim, this is the time where you add the trim to the main piece of your fabric, and you add it about 3/8 of an inch down from the top, and you sew it so that what you add it 3/8 of an inch down so it can be seen once it's been put on. But because I've not added any trim to the back of it, I would not be adding any trim to this. And what you would need to do is take your lining fabric, put them right sides together. So if you've used your trim, it's going to be sandwiched in between the lining fabric and the main fabric. And what you want to do is you want to sew along the top with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And once you're done with that, you would need to turn that over and press it nicely, and then give it two top stitches. Two top stitches. But now all we're going to do is we're just going to sew right along the top, 3/8 of an inch right across the top. So if you're adding a trim, the trim goes on the main piece A and 3/8 of an inch down from the top. So you add your trim first. I'm not adding a trim, so I'm going to skip that step. And once the trim has been added, you take your lining fabric, place it right sides together with the main fabric, so the trim is sandwiched in between the main fabric A and the pocket piece B, and then we sew right across the top. So we'll just go to the machine now and sew right across. So we're just going right across the top along. Once that has been done, cut off any loose threads as usual. And then we're going to turn them right sides together, and we need to go press now. So I'm going to press at the iron just to make sure that they're both properly positioned, and then we'll do the top stitching, the double top stitching rows on top of them. Now pressed it, and we've got the front and the lining, and now we're going to do 2 rows of top stitching onto the on the right side of the fabric, on the main fabric A part of it. So we'll go to a machine now and top stitch. And then I do the second row using the first stitch I made as my guideline. Or if you're going to start from the edge again, just do another, just make, do a 1/4 inch. But I do 2 top stitching at 1/8 of an inch. And voila. So the next thing we're going to do now is, scissors, trim off all these tiny bits at the side, threads hanging. And the main piece that we attached the zipper onto, that one, we're now going to place this pocket right over it, like that. And we're going to baste down the sides, both sides. And when we do that, make sure you don't catch the pocket in as you're basting round. So I'm just going to pin the top there in place, and I'm going to pin the top there in place. Make sure everything is nice and properly set out, and then I'll just baste in place. I'll just baste it in place for now. Yeah. So basting, use a stitch that's as long as you want it to be. The maximum my machine would go to is 5, so I'll just use that to baste. And I can baste as far as a 1/4 inch because the final thing is going to be 3/8 of an inch, so it should be within. Okay, and here we go. When I get to the curves, I normally go very slowly, so it's up to you, but just try and go nice and slow. And make sure you do not catch the pocket in any way. Move it out of the way if necessary. And it is basted on. So you have the pocket, you have the hidden pocket right in there, and that is done. That's the pockets completed, and now we're going to attach the top handles. You remember we made them right at the beginning, so we're going to attach these to the bag, the one with the pockets. We're going to attach, well, we're going to attach it to both, but we're starting with the one in the pocket because it's the one right in front of us right now. So what you need to do is you need to measure 4.5 inches from the side inwards, and you need 3 inches from the top down to place your handle. So 4.5 inches in from the side and 3 inches down would be there. So the bottom of your, the bottom of the handle should be 3 inches down from the top. So pin that in place while we position the other one. So measure again and measure, 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 measure again. And then on the other side, we do the same thing. And the thing is, when you're placing it, you need to place the handle like that. So it goes all the way up, it curves down, and make sure you're placing it the right way. So you have that little curve in there, and you can see how it looks. And that's what the front of it looks like. So when you're placing it, you can see what I'm doing. You place it like that. So the inner part goes over the top and comes back towards the inner part. The outer part goes round the bottom and comes and still ends up with the round the outer side. So that's how we're going to place our zipper today. And so I've lost my position. So that's 3 inches down and 4.5 inches in, and there. I'm using a 4.5 inch ruler, so it's easy for me to just place the ruler on and get exactly what it is I want. And so that's it positioned, as you can see. Now straighten it. And once it's been positioned, we now need to stitch the tab G to the body main A. So we now need to stitch that tab, the very first tab we made, that. We need to draw, we need to sew a box with a cross in the middle on both of them to attach them to the body. So we're going to do that now. Attach that with a box with a cross in the middle. And if you've pinned, make sure you don't go over any of your pins or anything. Yeah. 2.4. And like I said before, it gives it stability, and because it's a book bag, remember it's going to carry lots of books, it's going to carry a lot of weight, and doing the box with a cross gives it extra hold. And the second one is being completed as we speak. If the lovely machine will like to move. Okay, we're just getting to the end of that. And the final wrap. And the cross. Yep, I knew there was something going on down there. So my bobbin thread has decided to do some really naughty things. And I shall sort that out and be back. Sorted. And that is the handle attached. So we're going to do the same thing for the other main body of our bag, and we take that and we're going to be attaching the handle just right beside there, just right beside the straps. So we're going to be placing them just right inside there. So we take our, so if it's blah, yeah. So we take our straps and we pin them to just beside. And the pattern does say the distance between the two, the handles, the space between the handle when you've attached them both should be about 1/6, 1 inch, now let me verify that. One-sixth of an inch. So that is what we had when we did the first one, because I measured it. So there, 1/6. And then for this one, just before I sew it down, I'm just going to measure it as well and see if it tallies up with the other one. Mine is slightly different, and for this particular piece, it's not, if I put it right beside the strap pieces, it's not going to be 1/16 of an inch, because I use the smaller strap. So as in the width of my strap is smaller than what was originally stated. So make sure that when you place yours, and if it's not the original strap width that you used and you had to adjust because of your hardware, just make sure it's placed centrally and the gap in between them is not more than 1/16 of an inch. Now we're going to sew that down with another box. And if you would like to add rivets, once you've finished with the box, just stick your rivet right in the middle of them. But like I said, I'm not using rivets or anything, so I'll just sew that down. I have attached the handle to the main part that has the straps on. So that's that done. and completed the two outers, the two main outers, and I don't know if you're as excited as I am, because while we were making these, I found out some nice and, you know, cute things to do to bags and all that. So it's really been great. I love the hidden pockets as well, because it's just really nice. So we've done the two outers, and as we can see, we've really made good progress, and this is what we're aiming to get to. This is what we're aiming to do, to finish up the bag and to see the finished products of what we're doing. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. The third and final installation of this video will be completed on Thursday. So have a breather, look over what you've done, enjoy what you've done, and appreciate the amount of work that you've done and that you've put into it so far. And on Thursday, we'll be back to finish off all the other bits and pieces. We did a very good rest before we tackled the last bit, and it shouldn't take a long time before you actually see the finished product. So I would like to say thank you so very much for your time and for your attention and for your patience with me. I've not made this bag before. So we're all making this all at the same time together. So it's been fun. I've enjoyed myself so far, and I shall see you on Thursday to continue with the bag. Thank you and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.